Hey everyone, welcome to The Tent, your place for politics, policy, and progress. I'm Daniella Gibbs-Leger.
And I'm Colin Seaberger. Daniela, our listeners have a very special episode this week.
Yes, they do. We're here at the Democratic National Convention, soaking up all the good energy and hearing about Vice President Harris's vision for the country. So I spoke to Michael Blake, former vice chair of the DNC, about what makes this convention so special and how the Harris-Walz campaign can keep building on this momentum through November.
Yes, our listeners are in for quite a treat. But before we get to that, I gotta say, night one of the DNC was just electric.
It really was.
The room was on fire. The speakers just had the room completely, wrapped in their attention. And, we got to hear from, leaders from the past, leaders of our future, about the better vision that Democrats want to take this country. We've not really had crowds like this for more than the better part of a couple of decades or so, since former President Obama, and it's clear why Democrats are fired up for the Harris-Walz ticket in their better vision for the country. It's because they're focused on the things that the American people are asking for, things like focusing on lowering costs, tackling the housing crisis, building 3 million new homes, right? These are the ideas that the American people are asking for. And so it's no wonder to see them resonate. And I think the speakers last night, we're recording this the day after the night one of the DNC, and it's clear that those speakers totally got the message that Kamala Harris is trying to drive home. I have to say, my girl, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas.
Your best
I'm a
friend.
Texas boy, yes. She's from Dallas, gotta say. I thought she, though, did such an incredible job indicting the case against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
She herself is a former local prosecutor, something that she shares with Vice President Harris. And, I thought that her case against Trump was just unbelievably compelling. And then when she coupled that with Vice President Harris's, embrace of her after she got elected as a member of Congress and told her, like, you belong here, when Congresswoman Crockett was, like, really doubting her place as a member of Congress. She was a freshman, right, just gotten elected, and told her, you belong here. The people that elected you, put their trust in you. I just thought it was an incredibly powerful anecdote and one that really unlocked her potential, and she gave voice to that last night. I also have to say, Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, just spoke so movingly about shattering that highest glass ceiling that has left, our politics, completely shattered, for lack of a better word, right, over the course of the last 8 years, in this constant striving for, what is our full potential, right? How can, making our leadership more inclusive actually, make everybody in this country lifted up, right? And I thought Joe Biden just brought down the house. I thought he made such a compelling case for not just, the record of the administration, but also why Vice President Harris is the right person for this job in this moment. She just, he said it was his first decision, as the Democratic nominee, and he said it was his best one. And I think his case that he laid out last night makes clear exactly why.
I totally agree. And people have to remember that in 2020 he didn't have a convention like this because of COVID.
Yep.
So he never really got to experience, as the Democratic nominee, a room full of people shouting your name on that stage. And I have to say, it was like pretty emotional when, he came out there introduced by his daughter Ashley, and like just the room erupted. And I love the signs. I love advanced people, and they do such great jobs making sure that they have the signs everywhere. And it was really, really powerful. And I think he spoke so eloquently about the things that his administration has done and accomplished. Like, let's not forget the country that he inherited after Donald Trump, and January 6th had happened, right? So
Totally.
I know it seems like a million years ago, but it really was just 4 years ago. But in that time, President Biden has built a stronger economy than we have seen in decades. And we heard him talk about how the Biden-Harris administration has passed huge legislation, to fight climate change and invest in our communities. And, we're going to keep hearing these themes throughout this week because they've done a lot, right? This administration has lowered prescription drug costs for seniors, passed the first gun safety law in decades.
Speak on it.
Yes. Appointed the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and more, right? So, all while confronting huge threats to our democracy, not just at home, but also abroad.
They sure did. And, Daniela, it was just a couple of weeks ago that the Republicans convened for their convention in Milwaukee. And, you didn't hear anything about that, right?
No.
There was nothing like this at the RNC a few weeks ago. And you want to know why?
Why, Colin?
It's because the American public is fed up with Donald Trump's chaos and his nonsensical lies. I think they're really just kind of like tired of the Trump show, right? Like it's old, it's stale, it's not really funny anymore. He's just focused on retribution and his own his own pity party and refusal to move on from the hate, the division, the sexist tropes, etc. That he uses to try to distract us from not having a real record of success other than cutting tax cuts for rich people and corporations.
Gotta make sure you do that.
Oh, yes. And also, there's also Donald Trump's pick, J.D. Vance, to be VP, who every other day seems like he's got a new comment out there trying to one up how many people he can offend in a day. He's just been a total distraction for the Republicans, and also, really just shows Donald Trump's poor judgment that this is who he thinks should be, second in line to the presidency is just, it's ludicrous, right? And, this is that again, say that again, but they're really kind of two pieces of a weird pod,
A
right?
very weird pod.
A very weird
Yes.
pod. We don't like weird pods here on the tent, folks.
No, we don't. They're not very demure.
They're not.
They're not very mindful.
They are not very mindful. That is true. That is true. Not very cutesy indeed.
No, not at all.
But I'm curious, Daniela, what else are you looking forward to this week?
So I am looking forward. Obviously, I'm looking forward to Thursday. I think hearing the vice president stand on that stage and accept the nomination will be just an incredible moment. I remember in 2008 being in the stadium in Denver when Obama came out, and I didn't expect to break down in tears.
Yeah.
But I did. And I imagine that there's going to be a lot of similar emotions. I know everybody keeps saying that Beyonce's coming. I don't think she's coming. Sorry.
We like a surprise if it ends up happening, but folks, we do live in reality, and we should not anticipate there's going to be a DNC Beyonce concert.
No, but hey, if it happens, I'll be super thrilled.
More than happy to be a well-pleased viewer.
Exactly. And
Yes.
I'm looking forward to Tim Walz because, as we know on this podcast,
Coach
I love
Walz.
him. Coach Walz. He's the best. Bring all the dad energy. I can't wait.
We are in Chicago. This is the Midwest. Maybe we can get Tim Walz to do a keg stand or something. But,
Don't put that idea in his mind.
We'll see. We'll see.
We might see one between now and November.
Or a root beer keg. I think he
Yeah.
actually does not drink. So,
okay.
yeah.
What about you?
I gotta say, I am really excited to hear both from Doug Emhoff, who I feel like we've not heard too much. I feel like he's really let the vice president kind of really kind of hold her own in her position, right? And not, I feel like, tried to over insert himself. But I'm really excited to hear him talk more about what it is about the vice president that he, better than anybody else in the world, really sees as the true Vice President Harris, right?
Yeah.
What wakes her up? What motivates her? What is she concerned about at the end of the night, right? So I just think that color is going to be really great. I'm also super excited to hear from the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
You know, they have their own history, right? They ran in the same primary in 2019 for president. And so I feel like they've gotten to, and also serving as a member of the cabinet, like they've gotten a good opportunity to actually build a real relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that he makes such a strong, compelling case for the Democratic Party, probably more than any other Democratic surrogate at the moment. And so I bet that he will absolutely deliver and really help crystallize for folks what are the stakes of this election, right? You know, as a gay father of 2 kids, right? Like, I think he really can drive home what are the rights and freedoms that are at risk if, you know, if folks decide to sit this thing out or, you know, succumb to the politics of division, right? Rather than charting a better course for our country in the future.
I agree. And what I love about Secretary Pete, if I may call him that, is the way he takes down MAGA Republicans and Trump in a way where it's like, oh, you don't even know you got cut.
No.
But you did.
No.
Yeah. It's that Midwest stuff, man.
You know what, Fox News? You can keep booking Secretary
Please
Pete.
do.
We are all good with that
Please.
here on the 10.
Please. And I can't wait till Tim Walz comes on.
Yes, please. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Please go back and check out previous episodes. If you have any questions that you want us to cover on the tent, hit us up on Twitter at the Tent Pod. That's at the Tent Pod. We're also available on Instagram and Threads at the same account handle.
And stick around for my interview with Michael Blake in just a beat. Michael Blake is the founder and CEO of Atlas Strategy Group and Kairos Democracy Project. He previously served as a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee and as a member of the New York State Assembly. He also served in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs for President Obama and was National Deputy Operation Vote Director in 2012. Michael Blake, thank you so much for joining us on the tent.
DGL.
Hello.
What's going on?
Oh, you know, a little convention.
Oh, it's live outside.
It sure is. So let's talk about it. It's a very exciting week here in Chicago. You know, as a former vice chair of the DNC, can you describe for our listeners like the tone of this convention and how you think Democrats are feeling as we head into November?
When you put in perspective the energy that has happened this week, it is hard to really describe the magnitude and the speed. You typically would be preparing for your 2 nominees for months.
Yeah.
We've essentially watched it happen in a month. And I don't recall seeing energy like this before. The intensity has been pretty surreal. And the other dynamic that we really haven't internalized is everyone keeps asking, well, where is this bench from the Democratic Party? It's here.
Yeah.
And you got to see it very publicly throughout the essential public Veep nominating process. So now you watched it all this week. You can't leave this week without feeling excited.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I've heard a lot of comparisons in recent weeks between the Harris-Walz campaign and the early excitement towards President Obama's campaign in 2008, which you were very closely involved in. So do you agree with that parallel, or are there other moments that, you know, maybe you feel better match the excitement of this campaign?
I wouldn't say it's the same because there were very practical differences. So I think about, it's personal for me coming back to Chicago because I went to Northwestern and I started my career here, and in 2006 was one of the first 10 trainees for Obama. So that's kind of surreal in the Yes We Can program. And we had to win Iowa in 2008.
Yeah.
Like, we don't win Iowa, there is no conversation about the next steps. Right? And so you have that happen. Then you have the losses in New Hampshire and essentially the tie in Nevada and in South Carolina. And then all of that built up energy led to a different convention experience where at that point we also had teams that stayed in the States. I was the Michigan Deputy State Director in the general because we had so much momentum happening. This time around, the energy is absolutely palpable, but it was very clear she was the pick,
Right.
right? And quite frankly, she deserved it. She's the vice president.
Of course.
Right? So it was just very different energy in that degree. And so what we're now sensing is how do you maximize on that energy? You know? So the fact that you had on a Monday night her surprise everyone on stage
Yeah.
and effectively the passing of the baton was a different dynamic than we had before. You know, also, you know, we can't ignore the fact that the intensity of the energy, because Trump must be defeated. I never felt for a day that if Senator McCain or Senator Romney won, that I would be genuinely afraid.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We didn't have a Project 2025 to deal with back. We didn't have those different dynamics. So I think the other difference, though, this time is an intensity in a shorter amount of time. So people have arrived in Chicago and have been here this week with almost an assignment.
Yeah. So you talk about Project 2025. Let's get into it, right? You look at the RNC, their convention that happened a few weeks ago, and it was dominated by MAGA extremists.
Well, foolishness, but yeah.
Well, foolishness as well. And, Project 2025 talking points. So can you talk about some of the contrasts you see between the RNC's like radical, dystopian, dark vision for America and like the more positive, progressive, vision that we're hearing at this week's convention?
When you go to conventions, over and over again, people get excited about their signs, the signs that get passed out.
Yes.
Right? And when you think about the difference between the two, you had on a night sign saying USA, saying Jill for the First Lady, saying we love you, Joe.
Yeah.
The RNC had mass deportation now.
Right.
Right. So like the comparison is not even close of the energy. And then when you think about Project 2025, I try to give people very practical dynamics because it's hard to grasp 900 plus pages.
Yes, it is.
But when you start telling people they want to eliminate the Department of Education,
Right.
like full stop, that's crazy, right? Batshit crazy, quite frankly. Like when you just put it in the dynamic. When they're saying that if you are a civil service employee, we'll make you political because we could remove you if you don't get down with the Trump agenda. Well, for black and brown folk that serving in administration, we understand that. Like that's transformational, generational opportunities that could be gone overnight. You have them talking about a national ban on abortion. Right? So the dynamics are very clear, and I do think from convention purposes, you have, as Axelrod would always say, choice and contrast. The contrast is glaringly clear. And so we also, though, got to see throughout the course of this week different moments of the evolution and the successive leadership that we did not see at the RNC, right? You didn't have the Bushes showing up there.
No.
Right? No McCain's rolling through. Romney was like, yeah, I'm not going.
Right.
This entire week, put in perspective, you have two former presidents, a Secretary of State who should have been president, our presidential nominee, our vice presidential nominee, the sitting like all these different dynamics was sending a tone and an energy that they just didn't have, which you are able to again drive home the choice.
Right.
And a convention should do that. A convention needs to your earlier question about being DNC vice chair, formally nominate someone and then set the tone of the vision. You truly have one side being us saying freedom,
Right.
and joy, and their side is saying fear and take away.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear the differences that are happening when everyone leaves from Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's been a massive support, like just coming out for this campaign from Black voters. And I'm thinking in particular about the record-breaking fundraising calls that all happened, the Win with Black Women, Win with Black Men, and, that came literally like days after Vice President Harris stepped up. So how do you think Democrats should go about maintaining that energy? Coming out of this week, it is a very short, compressed campaign schedule, but it's still a little bit of a ways. How can they, further crystallize, as you say, the choice and contrast that we have?
On the Sunday when President Biden made arguably the most selfless decision in this generation.
Yeah.
Because we almost and I'm going to go to your question, but we almost ignore the magnitude of it, right?
Yeah, let's talk about
the
it.
man is a sitting president
Yeah.
who effectively got bullied. I mean, we just got to call it what it is. We just got to call it what you know, and decided, I am not going to run again for the highest seat in the world.
Right.
And then within minutes, I'm endorsing a black woman.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of folks, if we want to be honest, in our party that were not wanting that. They wanted this open convention piece, which, going back to the vice chair dynamic, would have created chaos.
Yes.
This week would have been chaotic.
It would have been terrible.
Because you would have had people who would have felt that not only do they believe that they're qualified, but then they would have to publicly say that the black woman vice president is not.
Right.
So how the hell would that help us win an election? Like, I don't understand.
It would have been terrible.
Pretty terrible on every dynamic. And so to that degree, it was on that Sunday. I was in Tennessee at the American Association of Justice. Saw the news, and then myself and Roland Martin and Quentin James, Car Sellers, we all got on a call immediately. Khalil Thompson immediately. And said, we got to do a black men call. Now, the sisters always doing your thing.
Yeah.
Shout out to the sisters,
Hello.
right? Okay, I gave you the shout out already, right
Oh,
there.
okay.
Okay. So, Win with Black Women was already doing Sunday calls. Joteka Edie's been crushing the game with that. We had not done a coordinated black men call the way we did. We had 54,000 people get on the line, right? We raised $1.4 million, which was split. And people made the choice of that split when they went on to Act Blue of doing it directly to the campaign or to black men organizations. And people decided, not only do we want to make sure she becomes president, but how do we support Collective and Vote to Live and Win with Black Men and Kairos Democracy Project and Black Men Vote, et cetera, right? And so how do we sustain this energy? Because it's so compressed, I do believe we can. Because we leave here today on this Friday after a week that's been incredible and are able to now go into a week of positive coverage because, of course, they're going to go campaign. And then you're going into effectively the start of an election, the general election season of Labor Day. Right? Like, boom, boom, boom. We're moving. Oh, no. Oh, by the way, then you have a debate on September 10th.
Yes.
Then you talk about black voters. The next day, 9/11, so patriotic moments. So President Biden clearly is going to send a dynamic very different than the former president.
Yeah.
Oh, then that night, we're in D.C. for CBC Congressional Black Caucus. So for 4 days, we can continue to highlight the impact for black folk. And then essentially 10 days after that, early voting started in a lot of states. And so we don't have the luxury to chill. We will use next week to rest and pace where we can. But we have to be very clear with people, and I always appreciate that you all do this all the time at CAP, and shout out to Ambassador Gaspard and the whole crew, right? Like, Election Day is not November 5th. Election Day is the first day someone starts voting. And people are going to start voting in about a month.
Yeah.
And so we don't have, nor will we need to worry about that. Lastly, their side and their candidates are so blatantly racist. To your question around black voters. Black folk gonna be watching this and be like, oh, hell no, right? Because on a policy standpoint, J.D. Vance is the sponsor of the bill to ban DEI. So, like, you can't be more blatantly racist than that. Donald Trump been a racist pretty much his whole life. And there is a difference between racism and prejudice. Racism is when you institutionalize it.
Yes.
Like Central Park 5, we know that. When his family wouldn't let black and brown people get access, they did all those different things. On the flip side, they will have to spend the next plus days attacking a black woman, which is why he is thoroughly at a loss. He don't know what to do.
He does not know what
He
to
don't
do
know what to
at
do.
all.
He is thoroughly confused because we didn't have this before. He was coming after Obama. He didn't have to go attack the brother and say he was talking about birtherism, but he wasn't running against him.
Right.
So, as black folk, we don't tolerate when you come from any of our people, right? And he has done this, and his entire general election strategy has been anti-vice president, anti-Tish James, anti-Alvin Bragg, anti-Fun. So I just believe, to your question, that will allow us to sustain the energy for the rest of the election.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Governor Tim Walz, who I love him.
The man is just epic.
He's so great, and he's been generating a lot of excitement online. I think he just recently joined TikTok, and already I'm like, he's crushing the game. So in your view, like, what does he bring to the table? Let's talk about his policy, and how do you think he'll communicate that to voters on a campaign trail?
So when you think about his personal journey before all this, public school teacher, military, family of teachers, understands the dynamic of what happens from hunting and then having an evolution, being an NRA A candidate and then becoming a D candidate. It's like, yeah, something has to change. While he was the football coach, he was the advisor of the Gay Straight Alliance, which says a lot out the gate. Like, okay, this man gets it. And what I've been saying to people a lot, I spent time in Minnesota. I was there as a vice chair. R.T. Ryback was vice chair before me. He decided not to run and endorsed me to run. But I was in Minnesota 2008. The 3 coldest days of my life was in Minneapolis in February of 2008, where the high was 0 3 days in a row.
Absolutely not.
Crazy. Where Mayor Ryback, actually, he put this in his book. It was so cold that his daughter gave me her mittens.
Oh.
Because I could not handle the cold walking 2 blocks because it was that crazy. So you got this dark-skinned black man from the Bronx with these bright yellow-ass mittens walking down the street, and then the Somalian brothers and sisters out there, they saw me, and they would give me mango juice every day, right? 100%, full stop. Y'all see Mayor Ryback, he'll tell you the story. So going back, I've seen the greatness of Minnesota, and for Governor Walz, I think if there's anything that tells you the testament of him and his family, the ability for him to talk through that they went through an IVF journey because they wanted to have a child, and they named her Hope. Come on, man.
I know.
Right? That's just like it's incredible before the politics. So you have a man. I always say you can be a man and a feminist at the same time. That he will be able to consistently throughout the election and after we win, because I'm proclaiming it now, say very clearly, I stand on the right side of reproductive justice and reproductive freedom. They don't. Don't let them tell you that as a man, as a person of faith, you can't do this. That's nonsense. And his whole background will be able to bring people in. Lastly, when thinking, I was at the Minnesota breakfast to start this week. AG Keith Ellison was there, Governor Vilsack, many others. And I said, as a black man, the fact that he can acknowledge that he could have handled George Floyd better is what I want to hear from a white man.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy for someone that's not in your community to get engaged in these matters. And we watched the Emmett Till of this generation, and he was willing to say, I could have handled this better. That's exactly what I want from a politician.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we keep seeing criminal injustice happening, and it cannot just be the vice president is the only one, because you're going to have folks be like, well, she's only doing it because she's black.
Right.
She's only doing this because she's black. No, doing it because it's right. And so you can tell I'm hot. Window to the walls, man. Window to the walls. I'm on the
Can
team.
I please get that on a T-shirt?
Oh, look, I'm going to say that at several events for the rest of this election. I mean, that is the best black hype vibe
It's so
out
great.
here all the time. He's so great.
He is so
He's
great.
so great. Oh, and then when he said this when he did the first event, that there is joy back in the election.
Yes.
Right? You don't really hear electeds proactively talking about joy.
Yeah.
Right? People want to be happy.
Yes.
Want to be happy. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Let's be happy about this. Let's be
Right.
excited about this. And it says a lot that it sets the tone because we cannot just say, I'm voting against Donald Trump.
Right.
You got to tell people you need to be excited to go vote for them.
Exactly. And, they're out there being happy warriors. So the work doesn't end with the DNC. So let's talk about, the next couple of months till the election. What's next? How should Democrats deliver the messages that we have been hearing this week to people who maybe haven't tuned in to the DNC? What should they do to keep up this momentum?
I've always been amazed, though, about, like, how are you a happy warrior? I've always wondered that phrase. That thing always amazes me. Like, do people, like, go into battle, like, smiling, and then they just, like, throw a spear or something? Like,
Yeah, they're singing as they do it.
Oh, they're singing.
Yeah.
Dig it. Dig it. So is that like in 300 or something like that? Like cats out here just, singing and, backflips and then
you're done.
and then you're done.
Yeah.
Okay. Some gladiator vibes out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, dig it. I just trying to understand what the happy warrior by now. Look, it has to be mobilization at a degree that we have not seen before. The data point I always give for elections, there are 206 counties that voted for Barack Obama twice that then went for Donald Trump. So it shows you if it was that close then, pre-insurrection, pre them attacking the black woman, which they're gonna lose their mind. We have to anticipate it's gonna be even harder. Now, second, the third party candidates, they're all a problem. First of all, RFK Jr., let me tell you, RFK Jr. is an absolute clown, right? And folks, if they have not taken the time, Google RFK Jr. framed.
Oh.
People don't realize this. RFK Jr. with Bill O'Reilly have a book. It is called Framed because RFK Jr., I'm not making this up. Make sure everybody pay attention to this. Try to frame a black kid from the Bronx and a young Asian man for a murder that his cousin committed.
Oh, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
They knew,
Yeah.
he knew that his cousin murdered a white girl.
Yep.
And he tried to frame a black boy. So RFK Jr. Framed. It is a book that he wrote. It's not like
that's so wild.
Like, it's not like Mike Blake randomly said it, right? Like this is what this cat was saying before all this.
Yeah.
Right? And so his whole family not even endorsing him. His whole family is endorsing Biden, now Harris, right?
Yep.
So when you think about that, and that even in the midst of all this foolishness, even as he's clearly coming out on tape trying to, kiss up to Trump and everybody else, he's still getting 1% to 2% some of these spots, right?
Yeah.
So that, the Cornell West 0.5, 1%, whatever that means, the jail, any of those numbers impact us, right? Because Trump's folks are locked.
Right.
And so to your question, very mechanically, number one, we have to be very clear to educate people about the dates of their elections in their respective states. Because a lot of people will think, I'm only showing up November. No, I need you to be focused on when does early voting begin and how have the rules changed in your respective states.
Right, like Georgia.
Like Georgia, where you can't have water, pass out water in lines. Crazy, right? But they're doing it obviously to try to deny us the opportunities. Separately, we have to find ways to creatively engage with people. Last year, of the 100 highest viewed shows on all platforms, 93 of them were NFL football games. So if you're not engaging in sports, which is what we do on our Next Level Sports Entertainment, that's our other arm that we have going, only black-owned sports TV network in the country. We do that because people pay attention to sports. People like being entertained.
Yes.
Right? First night of the convention this week, Steve Kerr.
Oh my gosh, the night.
Night.
I'm dead.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I love Coach Kerr so much.
Look, even as a Knick fan, I had to show love on that.
Same.
That was a vibe out here. Because people could understand that.
Yes.
They could relate. Oh yeah, he's talking about stuff. They didn't even have to say anything more, right? And so finding those outlets, because to the third piece, we will have very specific moments. Kairos is the other definition of time. It means opportunities to create moments. We will have very specific moments in the general election where we have to mobilize people. I do believe that you're going to have a 5-day sprint, September 10th from the debate through that 15th after CBC, where we can lay a national foundation of comparison side by side that gets us across the finish line. I felt this similar dynamic in 08. I felt, and I will never forget, because I was in Michigan at the time, when Senator McCain said the fundamentals of the economy are strong, I called my team and I said, the election's over.
Yeah.
Election's over. He literally just gave us the election. Because people forget, he said he had to stop campaigning to go back.
That's right.
And Senator Obama was like, no, you got to do both.
Yeah.
And I do believe that we're going to have that moment where mechanically that energy that's going to happen over those 5 days, you then have to plug people in quickly. We can't assume, people haven't done it the way for a minute like we have been. We can't assume people understand, how do you canvass?
Right.
How do you effectively knock on a door? How do you do relational organizing in new ways? How do you encourage people to donate money? It's hard to ask people for money.
Yes, it
right?
is.
Doing those particular things, because then fourth and finally, DGL, we got to make sure folks are aware of these other down ballot races and not just thinking about the vice president. Look, one of them, North Carolina, Mark Robinson is batshit crazy.
He's insane.
In every possible level.
Yes.
He is the one brother that you're not going to allow at the reunion.
Nope.
Right? He clearly can't play spades.
He's not coming to the cookout.
Whatsoever.
No.
Whatsoever. You have folks like that, where in the North Carolina, you will have to mobilize black folk to say, make history and elect this sister, but don't vote for the black man for governor.
Right. Yeah.
That can be a challenge for some folks out here, right? Now, on the flip side, you have a state Michigan, where they have a black woman running for state Supreme Court. So we have to do those different dynamics. You got to tap into the chronology of the time window. You got to tap into the specific moments. We got to educate people on when exactly are they voting. And then we got to be very clear about what is going on in your state for your local race itself. New York, home, right? We've got anywhere between 4 to 6 congressional races.
Yeah.
New York, California, Alabama, Louisiana are going to determine the House majority.
Yeah.
So you're in a zone where you're like, okay, how do I make you aware of that?
Right.
That, yes, I want you to go vote for the top of the ticket, but I need you to go drive up north to go help these other candidates. And then when you're done with that, then I need you to go drive down to Philly to make sure we win here, because the education component goes back to 4 years ago. And that's my biggest concern around democracy. People forget we did not win this thing until the Saturday.
That's right.
So you're going to have Trump feeding this nonsense of they are stealing the election
He's
from
already
you.
saying it now. Yep.
What's going to happen? Because
Yeah.
Republicans typically vote at a higher proportional rate on the day than we do.
Yeah.
So that is the next piece we got to start educating people around. That, hey, it's going to take several days. When it's resolved, then you're going to have about 2 months where they are going to do everything humanly possible to try to block.
That's right.
And so you cannot just talk about, that's why we have a Cars to Democracy project. You can't just talk about protecting democracy for election day. It's how do you get to inauguration day,
Right.
which I don't believe it's coincidental. Inauguration day 2025 is MLK Day.
Really? Wow. Whew, won't that be something?
Come on now. That's going to be the livest MLK ever. Folks are going to have the best shirts. I mean, the church hats
Oh, it's gonna be.
are going to be legendary.
It's gonna be immaculate.
Legendary. Folks going to start making up that they're related to King out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, MLK, Kamala. It's going to be a vibe out here.
Yeah. It is, but the hard work's got to come in the
100%.
next couple of weeks. And I want to thank you
Thank
for
you.
taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the tent.
I want to thank you for being consistent. You have been doing the work for years. You have been a blessing. You have been a joy and a light. You understand policy at a depth that most don't, and you can communicate and message it incredibly well.
Thank you.
Which is necessary, and I'm grateful for you for everything that you're doing and for allowing me to be in this space.
Well, thank you so much.
Always.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to go back and check out previous episodes. We will be back next week in our more traditional format. Colin and I will have a lot to talk about. We've got to get into this season of The Bachelorette, so don't worry. We will be back to our regular scheduled programming. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you next week. The Tent is a podcast of the Center for American Progress Action Fund. It's hosted by me, Daniella Gibbs-Leger, and co-hosted by Colin Seeberger. Aaron Phillips is our lead producer. Kelly McCoy is our supervising producer. Mishka Espy is our booking producer, and Muggs Leone is our digital producer. Fan, Matthew Gossage, Olivia Mowry, and Tony Pandolfo are our video team. A special thanks to our on-site video and audio crew for this special episode. They are represented by the IBEW Local 1220. Views expressed by guests of the tent are their own, and interviews are not endorsements of a guest's perspectives. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.